Welcome, everyone. This is the September 14th, 2022 meeting of the Conejo Open Space Conservation Agency.
Recording in progress.
That's good. Will you please join me in the salute to the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May we have the roll call?
Director Bill De La Pena, absent. Director Huffer?
Yes.
Director Jones?
Here.
Director Nichols?
Yes.
Chair Skay?
Here. And I don't think, do we have any presentations or announcements? Then let's go to public comments. Ms. Hagan, did you wish to speak for this? Okay.
Hello, I'm Elaine Hagan of Thousand Oaks, representing the Conejo Open Space Foundation. And I want to let you know about an event that we're sponsoring scheduled for April 1st. It's the Native Plant Palooza and Eco Fest, which will take place at Conejo Creek North. And we'll have many exhibitors and 4 speakers. It's a family event. It should be a lot of fun for children and adults of all ages. The speakers will include Laura Pacetta, who's a master gardener and herbalist, Jen Rodriguez, who's going to be talking about biodiversity and attracting birds, bees, and butterflies to your garden. Antonio Sanchez of the Santa Monica Mountains Fund, who's in charge of the native plant nursery there. And Steve Savage, who's going to be talking about the joys of backyard beekeeping. Exhibitors will include the California Wildlife Center, National Wildlife Federation, SAMO, City of Thousand Oaks Sustainability Division, CRPD Outdoor Unit, Conejo Climate Coalition, REI, Conejo Valley Audubon Society, Athens Services, National Park Service, and many more. So I hope you'll all take the opportunity to come and visit. And I would like to say also we're greatly appreciative of CRPD who have waived the fees for us to use the space that day. We much appreciate that. And also we are the recipients of a grant from the Coalition for California Clean Air. It happens that our event coincides with Clean Air Day week. Actually, the Clean Air Day is October 5th. But because our event happened to take place within that week, we were eligible for a grant, and they seem to like what we're going to be doing. So I gave you a little flyer. I hope you take a look and sign up. And also, if you could, you'll find a place to take the Clean Air Pledge. And we'd really appreciate if you would do that.
Very good. And that's October 1st.
October 1st,
Yes.
Saturday from 9 till 2 at Conejo Creek North.
I'll be there.
All right. We'll put you to work, too.
Thank you very much, Elaine. Any
Thank you.
questions of Ms. Hagan? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's go to the consent calendar, and this is for our meeting of May 11th. Any changes or corrections? Have a motion? Yes, Director Heffer.
I'd like to move approval of the minutes.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Director Nichols. No other comments. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And no no's. Thank you very much. Our first item is to authorize an appropriation of Woolsey Fire Recovery Funds for the construction of the Conejo Canyons Bridge at Hale Canyon Treatment Plant. Mr. Stark.
Thank you. I've got a few slides here that I'll put up for our presentation. The item before you tonight is a request to approve an authorization of Woolsey Fire Recovery Funds for the construction of the Conejo Canyons Bridge at the Hale Canyon Treatment Plant. As the board has been aware, the city and COSCA have been working in collaboration to construct a bridge to provide pedestrian and vehicular access across Conejo Creek northwest of the Hale Canyon Treatment Plant. Just to jog your memory, we have a photo here that kind of shows our design plan. Installation of the bridge will allow trail users, including pedestrians, bicyclists, and equestrians, to have a defined route between the Santa Rosa Equestrian Park and the existing Hale Canyon parking lot to the Wildwood and Conejo Canyons open space areas. The project improves safety by directing visitors onto trails and off of the treatment plant access road that was not designed to accommodate trail users. The bridge will also provide COSCA and city staff access to open space and public infrastructure. In the time since the project was initiated, however, the construction costs have increased due to increases in materials, fuel, and labor costs. These increases are affecting construction projects nationwide and are not unique to this particular project. The city and COSCA are now working to close a budget gap. On July 5th, 2022, the City Council approved appropriations from several city fund sources for bridge projects, leaving the final budget gap at $200,000. At the June 24th, 2020 COSCA board meeting, the board approved a framework for the allocation of funds received in the settlement for damages suffered in the Woolsey fire. Among the impacts of the fire were losses of recreational access and damage to maintained public trails. The Woolsey Fire Recovery Fund allocation to land management was intended to fund project improvements to recreational resources and to enhance public trails. and the bridge project's benefits to these resources make it a suitable candidate for these funds. COSCA has previously allocated $140,000 in capital improvement funds to the bridge project, and staff are recommending that COSCA appropriate an additional $200,000 to complete the bridge funding. The appropriation will be drawn from the existing Woolsey Fire Fund allocation to land management. The current balance of this account is $846,000, and all of that is currently available for appropriation. With that, I can answer any questions.
Questions of Mr. Stark?
Yeah, I have.
Director Jones?
Yeah, do you have a map, or could you explain to me exactly where this bridge is?
So in this, all we have on the preloaded slideshow is this photo here, and the water you see below the bridge diagram is part of the Hill Canyon treatment plant effluent system. So we're really right at the entrance to the Hill Canyon treatment plant.
Well, where is this in reference to the other bridge that we put in about 8 years ago?
Yeah, so this is probably maybe 1.5 miles upstream.
And where would one park to access this bridge to go into the park?
So the parking would remain where it is today. We have the existing Hill Canyon parking lot that COSCA manages, and we also have an agreement with the County of Ventura for parking at the Santa Rosa Valley Park down there. The service that this bridge provides is that it will divert people will now, instead of walking up the road, they will be diverted over bridge number 1, the downstream bridge, and they will use trails to get up to this point where they may cross over the creek and access the trails on the northeast side of Hill Canyon Road.
So people who to access this would still park down by the sewer treatment plant?
Yes, it just changes the route by which they will get to
Are
this
we
particular
putting
point.
in a bridge to help the people if they would desire to park over by the city yard there where the city, where we keep our vehicles and where you put your electronic waste and so forth? I know there's a path or road going down there. I hope clear it of weeds once. Isn't there a bridge necessary for that?
No, a bridge won't be necessary from that area. We have an existing parking lot up on the top there across from the Municipal Service Center area, and that road goes down in through Hot Canyon, and when you get to the bottom of Hill Canyon from there, it will connect to the trail that will connect to this bridge that will allow users to be able to access the whole Wildwood area.
Well, one last question. We were interested in alleviating some of the parking at the west end of Los Arboles. And would this entice anyone to park down here instead of up there?
We believe it would. That's part of the purpose here is that the Hill Canyon, the parking facilities we have, do have some additional capacity down there. And based on our user surveys of where people come from to use the Los Arboles access, a lot of them do come from areas where they'd probably be driving pretty close to the Hill Canyon anyway. Once the bridge is intact, we will actually be doing some work to advertise the change of the official area, and that will deliver and direct more people to this area.
Do you have any idea how long this will take to complete?
We do not at this time. The contract has been approved by the city, but we're working through some supply chain issues, so actual construction dates remain uncertain.
Mm-hmm. Good. Well, appreciate your efforts. I guess those funds we got from the fire are coming in handy, right?
They are.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Jones. Any other comments or questions? Yes, Director Nichols.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, a follow-up on the question from Director Jones. Do you know how far it is from that access point by the city yard to get to this bridge?
The city yard, like up at the municipal service
Yes,
center
yes.
up there.
Mhm.
I guess as the crow flies, yeah, maybe half mile down the hill. It's a steep.
Yeah, I've been on the trail. I've walked it.
It's a steep one.
I've walked up it, down and up. But I just was wondering, I didn't track the distance. I didn't know how far it was.
It's one of those ones that's not far by distance, but if you had to hike back up it, you'd remember
Okay.
it.
Yes, and I do remember it. It was in August. Is that the route that the vehicles would take? Because the public works vehicles it would take from Hill Canyon up to the yard, that very
Yes.
steep route?
Yeah.
Okay. And reason I ask is I understand there's a mutual benefit to both public works and COSCA and our trail hikers and mountain bikers. And I don't expect there to be a lot of congestion on the bridge from people meeting, but I just was wondering, is there any anticipated frequency of vehicle use on that? Is this like infrequent, once a day, if at all, or is it emergency or routine? I just didn't know what the intentions were for that.
You heard a use number?
The use will be pretty infrequent. The primary purpose will be for emergency ingress and egress and very, very occasional trips between MSC and the treatment plant.
Okay, because I didn't think there would be a regular reason to go back and forth on a periodic basis, perhaps, but I thought maybe it was more for emergency purposes than anything else.
Yeah, it's not really for the day-to-day, like staffing route. They'll still come in on the service
Okay.
road, and all the, there are a lot of vehicle trips on the existing road, and also all service vehicle trips to the treatment plant will remain on Hill Canyon Road.
Okay.
And in fact, on your slide, isn't on the right-hand side, that diagonal, that's the actual service road into the treatment plant, isn't it, from
Yes.
Santa Rosa Valley?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you said that the contractor has been selected,
Yes.
and is it on their end that they can't get the materials, or what is the shortcoming on that?
That has to do with the construction of the bridge, which it's the contractor's responsibility to procure the bridge. And so it's at the bridge supplier. These are prefabricated bridges.
Yes?
And so there's materials and supply chain issues in that business. So I don't have any details on precisely when that might happen. Meetings are still ongoing with the contractor and Public Works.
Okay, so we at this point have no idea whatsoever.
I can't say with any confidence what day.
Okay. All right, because I know the public has been waiting a long time for this, and there are a few homeowners on
As have we.
the Wildwood area that are even more curious than perhaps we are. It'd just be
Yeah.
nice to be able to provide that information as soon as possible. So if you could pass that along, I appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Any other comments or questions? Yes, Director Huffer.
I guess a follow-up to Director Nichols' question. If this delay goes past a certain point, I know you've been trying to time the construction of the bridge for various wildlife purposes. If the delays go on too long, is it possible we might have to go out another full year before we're able to complete the bridge?
Well, the short answer is yes. Our permits have limitations. Well, and as does it, even just trying to construct something in this location during the bird nesting season. So there are constraints. The bird nesting season ends on September 15th. So if we get pushed beyond our current permitted construction window, then we have to go to the next window.
Okay, but regardless of how long the delays end up being, whether it's weeks or months or a year, we do have a fixed contract with the winning bidder, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move the recommended action, Madam Chairman.
All right. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Director Heffer. If no other comments, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? No, thank you. That passes. And our next item is the authorize an appropriation of Woolsey Fire Recovery Funds for the Arroyo Conejo Invasive Plant Removal Project.
Great, Madam Chair, members of the board. I have a slide here I'll place up during this discussion here. I'll just kind of leave this up here for a second as it illustrates the project as I describe it. The Conejo Canyon's open space management plan prioritizes invasive plant management along Arroyo Conejo Creek as an action to improve ecological conditions in this rather unique habitat area. The Arroyo Conejo Invasive Plant Management Project acts on this priority by removing giant reed and Mexican fan palms from a 1.8-mile section of the creek. Both of these species degrade native vegetation communities by outcompeting native plants and supplanting associated native plant communities upon which our local wildlife depend. Coincidentally, both species also contribute to wildfire threats to adjacent communities. Giant reed produces high volumes of dry fuels, and the plant contains volatile oils that increase the intensity of fires even when the vegetation is green. Fan palms are characterized by fibrous fronds that trap wildfire embers and easily ignite. Unmaintained palms in natural areas pose risks due to the dried skirt of dead fronds that lie on these trees. In recognition, and during windy conditions when our fires are the worst, these fronds can become detached and they can carry fire some distance. They shed a lot of embers. In recognition of the ecological and community fire safety benefits of the project, COSCA has been awarded project grant funds in the amount of $200,000 by the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, and these were early action funds approved by the governor for community fire safety. Again, at the June 24th, 2020 COSCA board meeting, the board approved the framework for the allocation of funds received for in settlement for the damages suffered in the Woolsey fire. Among the most widespread impacts of wildfires, the proliferation of invasive plant species that threaten native habitat on COSCA open space. At that time, the COSCA board allocated the largest amount of recovery funds to projects that address invasive species impacts on COSCA open space. Tonight, staff is recommending that the COSCA board approve an appropriation of $365,000 from the Woolsey Fire Recovery Fund to match the grant provided by the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy to implement the Arroyo Conejo Invasive Plant Management Project. The appropriation would come from the allocation for invasive plant management. The current balance of this allocation is approximately $2.67 million, of which approximately $2.46 is available for appropriation. That's $2.46 million, not $2.46. Combining COSCA funds with grant funds facilitates a larger project and achieves value for COSCA both financially and ecologically. A summary of this slide has a chart of kind of how the funding breaks down. We have biological monitoring, contract cost of $115,000. This is a permit requirement. And the biomass removal and maintenance is estimated at $450,000. The way the project gets implemented, there's an initial removal of biomass, and then there's years of follow-up treatments for the seedlings and the regrowth of these species. And you can see that the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy has $200,000 into the project. Making up the difference will be the $365,000. With that, I'm available for any questions.
Questions of Mr. Stark? Yes, Director Nichols.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Stark, in the next item, we have a reference to having to reduce the height of the palms that were removed because of extensive costs. But I don't see any reference to that in the item before us. Is there a correlation between the two, or is there?
Well, yes, and that's in the next staff report. But I can tell you now if you want the.
Well, I just
preview.
was wondering why we're talking about removing palms here, but there's no reference to height. And does it not apply to
So
this
what
one?
what we will be removing are palms that are under 10 feet in height. So that gets all the small ones.
Yes.
The large trees, the costs were prohibitive. The access down into the Arroyo is very challenging, and trying to extricate those large trees, the biomass of those trees was cost prohibitive. There are other options for removing the larger ones by dispatching them in place and leaving them standing, and it's likely that that's a more cost-effective strategy for the larger trees.
But that's not going to be part of this?
That's not part of this initial project, but it's a project for which COSCA is likely to continue with. We can fund that under our own operations.
Okay. And then you didn't mention in the report, but I mean in the written portion, but you did in your verbal presentation, referring to the fronds being a fire hazard, which I'm aware of. If those larger mature ones are to be left and they have a long skirt of fronds, will that lower portion at least be removed to minimize the chance of fire getting into the fronds?
That's an interesting prospect that we could look into. Most of the frond skirts on these are higher. The problem is that most of those don't necessarily ignite from the bottom up, because they collect embers and ignite up the tree. COSCA understands that we have to balance what we want to do with what our finances permit us to do. Mm-hmm. We see the long-term benefits that, yes, maybe in the initial short term, we can remove a lot of fuel source down at the ground level. And while we can terminate a standing tree, it's likely that fuel will remain, for some number of years until they just fall off naturally. Mm-hmm. So that's just a reality of our capacity.
Okay. But it may be that it's a situational decision, that maybe it's not just across the board, everything is done that way, but maybe in certain situations, the ground is such that you could perform that action, but perhaps just not across the board.
So what we're trying to do is clean up everything that we can easily reach. It's a long-term plan, like a lot of ecological changes that we want to make on open space. We don't get a lot of instant gratification. These things do take time, and so I think our initial efforts will significantly improve ecological conditions and fire safety in the canyon. But it might take a longer period for us to achieve the complete goal here.
Okay. I just to make sure I understand correctly, this item before us here will also only include the trees that are small, the palm trees that are smaller.
Yeah.
In height. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Because those we could get out.
Yeah.
If you've been down in the Arroyo, you'll
yes.
you know how difficult it is to get a
It's
truck
not a
down.
hiker's paradise.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Yes, Director Huffer.
Just out of curiosity, are there other areas in our open space where these same invasive species are a significant problem? Or is this sort of the worst of the worst that we're addressing first?
The short answer is yes. We have these species in other parts of the open space system. Arundo is mostly confined to the Arroyo, so that's a more localized infestation. The palm issue is well, it's not system-wide, but it is spread throughout. So COSCA we've mapped them throughout our system, and we're currently working in partnership with the city to apply for some federal grants that would supply some additional funding so we could expand the palm program. We'll also be looking at some other species that contribute to fire safety, like tumbleweeds. So we're actively seeking funding for those, and we hope that the Woolsey Fire Recovery Funds, as you've seen most of the times when we come in for appropriations, we're matching those with grant funds. So we're trying to use our existing funds to attract other funds and work collaboratively with other agencies, and hope that over time we can address this at a system-wide level.
Good. So we're leveraging our dollars as much as possible.
Yep.
Good. And I just, I think this is an ideal use for the Woolsey Fire Funds with what we have available. So I'm highly in favor of this project. So it sounds great.
We chose this particular area also because this is probably one of our most unique ecological opportunities. The Arroyo it's a one of a kind in our area. So it will have the highest value in terms of return on ecological value.
Exactly, being a riparian corridor and linking all the other canyons, it is unique.
We just don't have a lot of those.
No. Very good. Other questions?
No, if you're looking for a motion, Madam Chair, I'll be glad to
All right.
move it. I agree with Chuck. I think fire recovery funds are very appropriate for fire prevention. So
Thank you.
that's my motion.
Thank you, Director Jones. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Director Nichols. If no other comments, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. No nays. Thank you. And finally, we have another item with fire funding. This is to award a general services agreement for the Arroyo Conejo invasive plant removal project to R.A. Atmores and Sons in the amount of $450,000 for the removal of invasive plants in the Arroyo Conejo open space, and delegate authority to execute the agreements to the co-chief administrative officer.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. In the prior item, we discussed the importance of the Arroyo Conejo invasive plant removal project and the funding necessary to complete the project. This item concerns the awarding of a contract to R.A. Atmore and Sons. They're a local company out of the Ventura area, local to Ventura County. COSCA sought proposals from qualified contractors for implementation of the project by broadly advertising a request for proposals through the City of Thousand Oaks public bidding system. An initial request for proposals was circulated on June 10th of this year with a scope of work containing removal of all giant reed and fan palms from the designated project site. The proposals were due on July 11th. The lowest bid price, however, exceeded the budget that we had available, and so the contract at that time wasn't awarded. So we discussed that before of the rescoping of the project. So the project went into a second round. So based on the proposals we received, when we realized that the cost prohibitions were coming from the removal of the tallest trees, that's when we rescoped the project to the 10-foot trees. A second RFP was released on July 15th of this year with a modified scope of work. We held a mandatory pre-bid job walk with prospective bidders, and that drew 8 contractors. So there was a lot of interest in the project initially, so everybody did get to see what they were up against when they got down there. At the end, however, only 2 proposals were received. The lowest bid was submitted by R.A. Atmore and Sons at $450,000. The other bid was much higher and reflected a potential misunderstanding of the scope of work. R.A. Atmore has extensive experience with the removal of invasive species, and particularly arundo, and has performed successfully on projects throughout Ventura County that are similar in size and scope to this. Staff is confident in the capabilities of the contracting crew. We both have experience working with them in the past on other projects. So we recommend awarding the contract. And with that, I can take any questions on that.
Okay. Questions of Mr. Stark? Yes, Director Nichols.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just was curious, is this same area or a different area as you were showing at the other?
This is the same project. So you just appropriated funds.
Okay, so it's that exact same
It's the
area. I
exact
just wanted to
same.
make sure that
Yeah. So
we're
that's
talking the same thing.
so
Okay,
you appropriate funds first, and now we're letting a contract.
okay. And then I had a question for our chair. Do you, by any chance, happen to know how the contract was let for removal of Arroyo in the LA River? I didn't know if
I believe that was actually Public Works, LA County Public Works did that. So
Okay.
I do not know how they must have, whether they used their own crews. It may have been part of it too.
No, it was contract. I was able to watch them
Oh, okay.
from the shore. But I just didn't know how that would, because I know there's a lot of parties involved in that
Exactly, yeah.
estuary.
Between LA City, LA County, and the Army Corps.
Yes, yes. Okay. Yeah, and again, I know, but that's a whole different scenario
Yeah.
through there. They kind of have a lot to clean up.
Exactly.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
All right.
As far as Arroyo infestations go, ours, is enough to offend us, but they get much worse than ours.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not like the Santa Clara River
Right.
or the LA River.
But that's why our project is happening a little bit differently. In some of those big areas, they bring in industrial masticators and mowers. And
Yes, that's exactly right,
but
yeah.
we have it growing in and among important native plant communities.
Yes.
So our methodology is much more precise and
Mhm,
and geared around the protection of resources.
You have to have a surgical application.
Yeah.
Yes.
You do it.
Yeah, much,
That will be fun for them.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay. No other comments or questions?
Could I just comment on one thing? I noticed that it makes reference to the people that are going to do the work, and that the contractor is responsible, that these are people who are authorized to work in the United States. I guess has to do with citizenship. I mean, this is really parenthetical to our matter here, but I wonder, do we have to maintain that as a public entity? Do we have to be sure that all people are either U.S. citizens or they're legal aliens?
yes,
So-
that's built into the contracting process.
Uh-huh.
So it's in the contract.
Okay.
And they're also the project is also because we're using the government money. This is a prevailing wage job too, so all the hours get reported to the Department of
Yeah, well,
whatever.
this is not a
Industrial
philosophical concern
Yeah.
on my part. I wish that, again, this is parenthetical, but when the second President Bush was president, he had a plan for any illegal people to become legal with certain steps, and that went down the drain. But I would be much in favor of something like that, and that would cease to be an issue with people, because I imagine contractors are fearful sometimes that maybe their work will be stopped for that reason. Anyway, that has nothing to do with the...
I mean, for purposes of this contract, it's a standard contracting term, and just in general, any entity that's doing business with COSCA needs to follow all the laws of the state and the country. So that's the purpose of the inclusion in the contract.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true. Thank you.
Okay. I don't think we have a motion yet. Yes, Director Hoover.
In that case, I would like to make a motion that we accept the staff recommendation to award the agreement for the invasive plant removal project to R.A. Atmore and Sons, and everything else is in the staff recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Director Nichols. No other comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. No nays. Thank you very much. Okay, now that gets rid of all of our action items. We have the COSCA Volunteer Corps activity verbal report.
Good evening, Chair Skay and members of the board. I have a very brief PowerPoint. So for May through August of this year, Trail Watch and Trail Adoption volunteers logged the following hours. Trail Watch had 137 reports and 227 hours donated, and Adopt a Trail had 115 reports and 148 hours donated. As always, we very much appreciate the efforts of all our volunteers. Their dedication is truly an important component of our resource stewardship efforts. Thank you, and with that, I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Questions of Ms. Hubert? All right, let us go to Mr. Matt Kuba.
Good evening. I have a PowerPoint presentation. So we've been extremely busy since May, working on Ranger headquarters, but we still managed to get out and get cute pictures of the critters that are in open space. So, and that one is doing what it's supposed to do, and it has a small lizard in its mouth. So I know it's cuckoo that they're there, but they are. And I noticed that the last couple of meetings I've talked about the number of trees that are going down, and this actually isn't behind the up the canyon from the Shumash Center. So we are still losing oak trees, and yes, we had a little bit of rain the other night, but that's not going to help the water table. And in Triumphal Park, one of the urban parks, we lost 4 trees this week, large trees. So it's scary, just saying that. So one of the things that the Rangers have to deal with is fences. And I've been trying to be diverse in what we cover every time, but we do manage miles of fencing. Hundreds of feet of it get taken out every year in accidents. It doesn't take much to take out a lot of fencing, but I wanted you to see kind of what happens when that happens. So that's all repaired now, but all through the district, especially along the Rancho Potrero area, that's a very hot spot for fencing going out.
Is that because of speeding?
Speeding, yes. Okay, so this is Ranger headquarters. A couple announcements with this slide. The new Rangers have started a week ago, so that's very, very exciting. The Ranger headquarters is now officially the Rangers' home. It's still having boxes unpacked and everything, but if you saw, there's an email inviting you to an open house on 10/26. You're all invited. We're going to have be showing off some of our equipment, and we'll have snacks. I'm not sure what the snacks are, so I'm not going to promise anything at this point.
Granola bars.
That'd be trail mix.
Yeah, it'll be trail mix. No. If you know the Rangers, they eat well. The other thing that we've been talking about with the Rangers is not having trucks. And that picture that was up there, the reason I took that photo, this one here, is because I had just received a text from our fleet person, and he had just said the trucks will be here by the end of October. So we will have 4 new Ranger trucks at that time. So that's everything came together in the last month, and really proud of it. This is the exterior of Ranger headquarters right now. You can see there's fencing going in. There's a reroute of a little trail that the neighbors use. And so being an urban park guy, I would deal with irrigation a lot. I don't do golf course irrigation. Golf courses have what's called a valve-in head. So you can control every single sprinkler individually. Well, there was a sprinkler under that trail, and we didn't know it. And when you hit it, it just goes. So that was early on in this, before we hit summertime, and we did have rain afterwards. So we feel okay, but we were still kind of embarrassed to have hit something. So, but Ranger headquarters looks good. How to get an open space, and this is Rancho Potrero open space near the Tex Ward Point. Somebody decided that it'd be nice to be more comfortable up there, but that was retrieved. I do like that the Rangers take nice pictures of these things out in open space, so we are able to use them. And a wonderful sunset from the recent rains. That's a classic look of clouds prior to a rain. Within 24 hours after that kind of look, you'll get rain. So I'm available for questions.
Can I ask you a question, Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Is it, do you have any problem recruiting rangers, or are there people that are anxious to do that?
It has been a problem in the past. I will say, since we had a recruitment and we had 4 openings, I felt we were going to be lucky if we got 2. The 4 that we got, we were very confident with. All 3 of them were local, raised in the area. The timing on this was perfect. Each one of those individuals had a shift in their life in such a way that it just lined up. It was absolutely perfect. So I don't think I've ever had a recruitment for any position where we got more than 2 people. So I feel real confident with this. Good
Well,
folks.
That's great. I'm not a sociologist, but I understand young men in this country today don't have a lot of practice in doing hard work. And you got to do hard work to be a ranger. So I'm glad you got the people.
They're coming with a lot of hard work in their background, yes.
Yeah.
That's great.
And you'll get to meet them if you come on the open house.
Okay.
Good. I'll be
That's
there.
at the former Cameron Center.
Correct.
It's still, I guess the Cameron Center, but will it be renamed?
Not officially, but we're calling it our HQ or
Okay.
Ranger Headquarters.
All right. Yes, Director Huffer.
Once the once the 4 new Rangers are up to speed and you've got the 4 trucks and all that, what do you anticipate Ranger coverage for open space and for the district will be 7 days a week?
Well, it's always been 7 days a week.
Oh,
So
I know that, but I mean,
Okay, so just overall, the Rangers have always been on 365 days a year. The coverage will be a lot better. The status we were in prior to this was if we had 1 Ranger sick, we only had 1 Ranger on. So now we at least have some backup, which is great. So if we have a Ranger sick, we'll have 2 on, possibly 3. So it's a big help, and just in coverage, it's a big help. But we'll also have more muscles every day, more skill sets, diverse skill sets, because everybody's got a different thing that they've done in their past. One of the individuals is a former firefighter, so he's going to bring a little bit more fire experience. One of them worked on the Appalachian Trail on a trail crew for 2 seasons, so he's bringing some different trail aspects to it. One of them's a local individual that worked for state parks, so it's a really diverse group, and it's going to really enhance our abilities.
okay, but even with all the additional resources, it's still going to be primarily working projects in the open space or in the district, as opposed to, I know the park district is always getting complaints about, well, we have this issue at park A, B, or C, and why can't we get a ranger there in 5 minutes? So
It'll help a bit. Excuse me. It'll help a bit with that, but the majority of the work is in open space. We're going to be able to expand some of our programs dramatically. I think our one of our main goals is the volunteer program, enhancing our ability to support volunteer groups for trail work, smaller trail work days, maintenance projects. That we get a lot of requests for our little work parties. So we're going to try and set up some programs to do that. We're going to also take care of our equipment a little bit better. I think all of those things are going to be enhanced a bit. Not 100%, but it'll be noticeable.
That's
good. Well, it's great to have all these additional folks on board. So
Absolutely. I think the volunteer report will be much longer in the future.
So, Matt, do they all come with already having PC 832, or does some of them need to do that?
One of them does. One of them also has law enforcement background, but we're going to have them. It's been a while, so your PC 832 is only really valid for 2 years if you have not been doing law enforcement. or so we'll be putting them through that.
Okay.
They'll be taking that by November. They'll be done.
Very good. Okay. Yes, Director Nichols?
Thank you. Thanks for the update, Matt. Appreciate that. Nice photos of the interior. I'm usually always taking exterior photos, so glad to see that. With the main emphasis of the Rangers being, as Director Jones said, doing lots of hard work outdoors, do you see that continuing, or do you see now the role expanding perhaps to more of the kind of like the state park or national park where it's little powwow around the campfire and giving an interpretation type of a thing? Do you see that being integrated, or is this pretty much just going to be maintaining the open space and trails?
Everything will expand a little bit. So that will expand a little bit, but we're going to lean on volunteers for a lot of that. Part of my background was running docent programs with Los Angeles County natural areas. So we had large volumes of volunteers that were very well trained and would do our interpretive programs through our guidance. So that's kind of what I'd like to model it after. So there's a big demand for volunteering in the city, and I think this will be a good outlet for a lot of the people.
Perfect. And
Great.
and then just one last thing. I think I saw on the COSCA newsletter came out that there's a trail workday scheduled in October.
Yes.
Does this mean that you have so many rangers that we won't need trail workdays anymore?
No, no, we will be having the 2 large trail work days continuing, because those are big projects that we need 100 people for. So yes, that's coming up October 15th. More details will be coming out within the next couple weeks. That event is going to be on the Wishbone Trail, and it's going to be there's a lot of tread work. There's going to be a lot of McLeod work on that one. But the details will be coming out. The one main detail is that it'll have a taco lunch. So.
It gets the volunteers out.
Matt, who was the woman that was so good that very sadly passed on, that was active in the trails? Osborne, was that her name? Or?
Julia Osborne.
Julie Osborne, yes.
Yeah. How long ago was that? Do you?
January
It's
2020.
been that long.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, I worked on cleaning a trail once with her. And
Yep.
She was a hard worker.
Yes, she was.
I'm sorry
Absolutely.
she's not with us.
Yeah. Indeed. Other comments or questions for Matt? Thank you very much, as always. Okay. Do we have any COSCA updates, Mr. Friedel?
Not a COSCA update, but a CRPD update. A couple things related to, our partnerships with the city for sure. So I wanted to specifically mention the progress that we're seeing on Page Lane Park, which is the park near where Page Lane goes underneath the 23 freeway, near Conejo Oaks there, just south of the Conejo Creek South soccer field. So soft opening in early October, meaning we're just going to simply take the fences down and people can get on the property. There won't be turf, so it's a park without grass, although it has 3.5 acres of grass turf in the plan of the 14 acres of a park. 3.5 were supposed to be grass, but given the drought and the watering limitations, we decided to, not turf it at this time, but we do plan to do that in the future. And we expect we'll do a ribbon cutting probably a few weeks after the soft opening, just so that we make sure all the kinks are worked out when we invite everybody out formally to be there. So you'll all, of course, be invited. And again, I'm mentioning that the city was a great contributor to that financially. And then another partnership project, the Teen Center and Global Adult Community Center improvements. That project is kind of nearing its end as well. A lot of work still remains, but we are given some assurances we will definitely be having a ribbon cutting and an open house before the end of the year, hopefully in November, but might be December, but we're looking forward to that in November. Finally, I just would mention that this November, CRPD is having its 60th anniversary birthday. So it's a big, it's a birthday with a 0. So we're going to have a big kind of community birthday party, if you will, and you will all be invited to that before the end of the year as well. So with that, I'm available for questions.
Excellent. Any questions of Jim? Gary, did you have an update?
Yeah, I do. So, Madam Chair, members of the board, after 35 years in the business, I will be retiring at the end of this year. And this will be my last board meeting. There will be another representative from the city manager's office as we move forward. I just wanted to say how fortunate I feel to work with such an amazing group of people, such a dedicated group of board members. The staff has just done some amazing things. I think you're in really good hands with Brian, Anna, Noel, and Matt, and Jim. COSCA is definitely on the right track, and there's so many good things happening that it's exciting. So I wish you all the very best in the coming years. It's been a real pleasure to serve and contribute, and thank you.
Thank you. And retirement? You're way too young.
Well, as my son says, some of those 35 years are dog years. So I need to get out there and play a little bit.
Oh, good. Okay, well,
so thank you.
You've been a fantastic addition. Thank you so much for all your help on everything we've been doing the past few years. Really appreciate it. Yes, Doug.
Yes, it's a surprise, but a welcome surprise for you, I'm sure. Glad to hear this. I just don't remember getting an item on our packet for approval, so
Yeah.
I think that needs to be before us before that can actually happen. But thank you for your service. I know you've been along with the city for a long time, and certainly with us here at COSCA during my tenure. Appreciate your support and making sure we're in tune with city activities. I know we have board members, but it's nice to have part of the executive team here as well to kind of keep things flowing. And I think that does help to make COSCA the unique partnership that it is between the district and the city. Is likewise, I know with our general manager being part of the city's E-team, as he refers to executive team, just being a partner there. I think it just really speaks well of how kind of seamlessly the organizations work together, and I know you're part of that from that side, just as Jim is from our side. So thank you so much for your effort in that regard, and we'll look forward to some postcards or something in the future. Yeah.
Indeed.
If I could just interject on staff's behalf, we really do appreciate everything Gary's done for us. In the tenure that I've been here, he's been a great advocate for COSCA, and has been a bridge between COSCA and a lot of city agencies, and it's really brought the full resources of the joint powers together, and we're greatly appreciative for his leadership and his guidance.
Indeed, and I say thank you, Gary.
Well, when is our next COSCA meeting?
Will be November 9th.
Okay.
November 9.
Because I'm not making any long-range plans. I'm going to see what the voters say in November. So I may be leaving with Gary here shortly.
Well, we'll expect to see you on November 9th, regardless. Any other board member comments? I just want to say that the dedication of the Tex Ward Point at Rancho Potrero was a great event. Thank you, CRPD, for putting that together. Really a wonderful way to honor the General Manager Emeritus of CRPD. And it was a fun occasion as well, watching the clouds roll in from the ocean. All right. Well, if there's no other business or comments, we are adjourned until November 9th. Thank you very much.